Hello again, welcome to another episode of Behind the Wheel. My name's Mick, we're at the National Motor Museum. I'm the Senior Curator, and this is a 1932 Delage D8S. Now Delage is one of those legendary, this is one of those legendary vehicles, and Delage is one of those manufacturers that in the 1905 through to 1953, I think they were active, but in the first half of the 20th century, they were in the same conversation as a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. Real sort of upmarket French vehicle. You can see up here, it's got quite a nice little logo, but this beautiful crystal perch that identifies the Delage D8S is a Lalique, which is a French crystal manufacturer. This specific model, the D8S, is probably their pièce de résistance of the brand. Only 99 of them were built, and only about 50 of them survive in the world today, I think, or that's what people believe. And for example, a couple of years ago, a D8S was the winner of Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, which is probably the most prestigious concours in the world. So they're real sort of legendary luxury classic cars. Now this Delage is probably the only one, I'm pretty sure, to have a fully Australian history. It was delivered new in 1932. The year it was built to a publican from Geelong. And I think it passed through a couple of hands in Victoria until getting to a person who unfortunately wrapped it around the pole. So it would have originally had a French body made in Paris. I'm not entirely sure which coach builder. After the accident, much of the rear was destroyed, and you can sort of come swing around the car and see it has since been replaced. It was originally, the way it was described by the previous owner, who donated it very generously to the National Motor Museum, Mr. Anthony Simpson. I think he described it as an uninspired body, what was on it before. But it has been, I think in the very late 90s, after he bought it, it was restored by an Adelaide-based company. They did a lot of research and more or less, I think, managed to recreate what the original body would have been like. But I guess fair to point out, it's not a fully French body, it was recreated in Australia. Now, I'll do it in strides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over 5 meters long. Believe it or not, this is the short wheelbase version, so the Delage is a huge vehicle, and when we look under the bonnet, you'll see probably my favorite feature, which is the engine. It's enormous. Very, very impressive. You can imagine going for a Sunday drive in this. Obviously, it was for the select few who could afford it at the time, and it's a shame the mark no longer exists, but they made some real fantastic cars. So why don't we have a look under the bonnet with our mechanic Nigel.
There she is, Delage, straight 8, somewhat slightly modified with the 4SUs on it, which takes her probably from her original top speed of about 82 mile an hour to just over the 100 mile an hour mark.
Yeah, so originally it had a single carburetor, right?
Single carburetor. We have the original equipment for it, but this is how she arrived at the museum.
Now, very interestingly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think after the accident, the engine in the car was replaced?
Well, the engine was actually removed, and the engine actually found its way into a speedboat, and then has since found its way back into the Delage, so she's back to being original engine.
Very glad about that.
Most definitely.
Good piece of research from whoever restored it to find it and match it to the original vehicle, because as I said earlier, 99 of them built, so having those matching numbers is an absolute must.
Most definitely. She's very, very sweet.
So I think Delage are one of those manufacturers who, because they made quite big and high-powered engines, they did transition into aircraft engine manufacture, like your Rolls-Royce. Yeah, I guess having a look at it, you can see why there's not much space spared in the engine bay, the enormous engine bay. And you can see up here the original plate. So D8 Type S, engine number 66.
Number 66.
So interestingly, even though in 1932 this was about as high-end motoring as you can get, you're not quite getting up to those 100 mile an hour, although with the modified carburetor setup you probably can. We've never driven it that fast, have we? But Nigel, you've had a good spin in her. How does she drive?
Well, I've been with the previous owner, and I think we managed about 70 mile an hour, and absolute beautiful to be in the car at that sort of speed. Handles the road extremely well, and the beauty of it is it's got 4-way adjustable shockers with cables, and so you can take out the bumps or the bounce on the road. So it's a real nice car to be in. Real nice.
I think we should put that to the test.
I think so. I think it's time to close the bonnet and take it for a drive.
Done. All right, we're inside. Actually, I'll just before you fire up, Nigel, one thing I will point out, I love old cars, as we all do, but amazing that a vehicle this big, they still managed to make them just a little bit squeezy. I know people were a bit shorter back in the 1930s, but you'd think a little bit more legroom. But anyways, here you can see the real intricate dashboard. A lot of dials, RPM there.
Sort of aircrafty style.
Yeah, it does look like the inside of a 30s aircraft, and no luxury vehicle coming out of Europe at the time is complete without Jaeger instruments. But let's fire her up. How do we do it?
Turn the key. Push the starter on the... There she goes.
Now from a big and finely tuned flat 8 engine, I would expect this to be a very smooth drive on the open road.
It is very much so. Plenty of torque in this engine. It'll pull its... It's one of the characteristics of the engine. It's got a lot of torque in there. So she'll pull herself up in fourth gear pretty much. Any hill that you can point her nose at, I reckon.
It's obviously quite a big car, so it's not really made for tight cornering or anything like that, but we won't be traveling at high speed, more just to let you guys feel the sound of the engine. Hear the exhaust. Delage D8S, one of our most recent acquisitions and one of my personal favourites.